Yo, what is up, guys? Joker bringing you another video. This time going over Last Epoch Season 3 Beneath Ancient Skies that launches on August 21st. So real quick, I wanted to go ahead and start this video with a couple of PSAs. One, this is by no means a build guide video. This is going to be purely a theory craft of a build that I think might be fun and what I plan on starting with. Two, I'm relatively new to Last Epoch in the grand scheme of things. I have 375 hours, but that's from all the way back in 2021, right? I've been following the game for a decently long while, and the vast majority of my playtime was prior to 1.0. I'd say I only have about 120 to 150 hours post 1.0 in the game, right? So I'm still relatively new. I'm much newer than a majority of the other ARPGs that I made videos for. Now, third thing is just going to be a couple of references, right? If you don't know Dreadful on YouTube, he's the guy that I learn a bunch of the info from. Same thing with Aaron Action RPG. Both these guys cover Last Epoch a lot and really good for information, really good with like build guides, right? These following their builds will actually get you further than trying to copy mine, if that makes sense, right? It's just they have much more experience in Last Epoch than I do. With those PSAs out of the way, let's start going over the character, starting with our skills. So we have Rip Blood, Transplant, Marrow Shards, Bone Curse, and an undecided fifth skill. I haven't decided what's going here yet. Is it Flay? Is it Aura of Decay? Is it Reaper form? I do not know. This is going to be literally the vibes slot. Whatever feels the best is going in this fifth slot. For the skills themselves in our Rip Blood, we have Gushing Wound for bleed chance. We have Revile for dot multi. We have Blood Bond for our Blood Tether. This is what's giving us our Blood Tether. What the Blood Tether does is it tethers to an enemy, drawing blood from them, dealing physical damage over time, and deals 1% more damage per bleed on the target. This is essentially the thing I saw and went, okay, we're going some kind of bleed build because this seems incredibly strong. In case you're unaware, in Last Epoch, bleed stacks infinitely. So this can be a 999% more damage multiplier, right? This is going to be insane. It's super easy to even get 300, 400, 500 stacks of bleed on an enemy. So this at a bare minimum is like 250 to 300, like without any kind of investment. That's like easy to do, right? So potentially really strong for our single target. And then we have our Rip Blood casting Marrow Shards, which is why we have Marrow Shards. And then we have Coagulation, which is spitting out a ball, which essentially what it does is applies more bleed for us, right? Like that's the entirety of this thing's purpose. Then with Transplant, we're using it for utility. We get haste, we get frenzy, we get to cull enemies, we get bone armor. We just get so much from Transplant. It's kind of insane, right? Then we have Marrow Shards. That's going to be being cast from our Rip Blood. And we have Ossomancy to have it cast twice. So essentially, the way that this works in my mind is every one cast should be casting 3 abilities, right? And then I'll show you our bleed chance here in a second. But then we have some armor shred, we have bleed chance on Marrow Shards, and then we have a little bit of sustain. That's essentially what this does. This heals us. Then we have Bone Curse, we have armor shred, we have Marrow Thief, we have Bone Feast, Cloven Flesh, and then Cursed Ground. Essentially, this just turns it into Cursed Ground, right? I feel like that one should have been obvious and I don't need to explain it, but I did anyways. So those are our main skills. We're going to look through the other skills, see what we want. I think Aura of Decay might be nice because I think we can turn it into physical and have it apply bleed over time instead. So that's like I don't know what our last ability is going to be. Like I said, it's going to be purely off vibes. Before we go over the gear, I wanted to go over the numbers a little bit because I don't even know how accurate these are or how this would give me an effective DPS. I don't think it does that. But essentially, this is the important part right here, right? Bleed chance. We have a 352% chance to apply bleed, and I'm pretty positive that this is not taking into consideration the skill itself. So it's not counting the extra 100% we get from Rip Blood or Marrow Shards, right? So at a baseline, any ability I use has a 352% chance to cause a bleed. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to be hitting 3 times at a baseline, remember, because the Marrow Shards and then the Rip Blood. So we should be able to apply like 12 to 15 stacks of bleed every hit. And then we have a bleed damage of 224 right now and a bleed duration of 137%. So my bleeds literally almost last 1.5 times as long as they normally would. I just wanted to go over that real quick. That, like I said, may be wrong, but I'm hoping it's not. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go over the gear itself. So for our weapon, we have Weaver's Gift, and in my opinion, I think this might just be BIS unless I'm unless I'm misunderstanding this, right? So what this does is it's going to be giving us 25% increased duration of bleed, and it's going to be giving us leech from our damage over time. Sorry, excuse me. And it's going to be giving us penetration for our damage over time. Plus, this item is going to have Weaver's Will on it, which means that the modifiers are this is going to be the weakest version of this item, is one where the Weaver's Will has not been used up, right? Because the Weaver's Will can increase these modifiers. If it increases the penetration or the duration, that is massive. I don't know what we would be able to replace this with. I may be like completely off base or completely wrong here, but I believe this is going to be the weapon that we want to look for. For our helmet, we have the Bone Clamor Barbrute, and this is mainly for kind of our defensive layers, right? This is like 90% of our defense, and this is just because it's going to be generating a large amount of necrotic resistance, not necrotic resistance. It's going to be generating a lot of ward for us because we have 259 necrotic res with this little half-assed thing that I threw together, which means that we have 132 ward regen per second, which should get us to be able to live for at least decently well, right? Then for our heart, I've never seen our amulet. We have the Pearls of the Swine. I've never seen this amulet, so I don't know how rare this is. I don't know if this is new or what, but it seemed super good for the build as well because Bone Curse also inflicts Decrepify. Decrepify is a curse which deals 200 physical damage over 10 seconds with added damage applying at 100% effectiveness per second and gain 1% more damage per 5 of your missing health. It also causes the target to take 15% more damage from damage over time, right? So that seems incredibly good. Not only are we probably going to be playing on low life, so it gives us an additional relatively strong source of damage apart from our bleeds, apart from our blood tide. Like it gives us another free chunk of damage, but it also gives us a 15% more damage multi essentially with our damage over time. So really good there. It also has increased physical damage, which scales bleed. It has vitality, which is giving us res, all attributes. Looking at how good this thing is, I'm assuming it's hyper end game. So realistically, we wouldn't be using it early on. Um, Sometimes it'll show like the weightings where you can scroll down and see what, but I don't know what effective level for LP means, and I'm too lazy to read it. But yeah, if anything, if this is a chase game, like in game unique, then this is what I am going to try to get as my amulet. Then we have the Flayer's Pride, and this is just a really good shield. It has 13% less physical damage taken on block. It has less physical dot taken. You have a big chance to bleed on hit. You have physical penetration with bleed. You have life gain on kill. You have intelligence, which scales your damage. You have reduced health cost of spells, making your transplant cheaper, making you able to spam it more overall. So once again, don't know the rarity, but it's going to be something I'm aiming for because once again, like the Weaver's Will, I don't know how hard it would be to get this, like to get a better shield than this, right? Then for our rare body parts, that sounded weird. For our rare gear, I'm going to phrase it like that. That sounds at least less weird. We have a Necropolis plate that essentially just has damage with rip blood, increased damage with blood splatter. Then we have bleed duration, void res, and then we have reduced damage taken from crits. I know the only 45% is probably not going to do a super ton, so it's just there because I didn't know what else I was putting there. Then we have a belt, and the belt essentially giving us resistance, physical damage, and mana regen. Then we have two ivory rings that are essentially the same thing. They're giving us necrotic resistance and ward decay threshold. The ivory ring is specifically because of the helmet, right? We want to try to get as much overcapped necrotic res as possible because that's what gives us a bunch of ward regen. So these are essentially that. They're giving us a damage over time, elemental res, crit strike avoidance. I don't know why I have that, and mana regen. And then this one has mana regen, damage over time, ele res, and fire res. For our boots, we have the Blood of the Exile, which is 35% move speed, 67% increased bleed duration. So once again, seems super, super fucking good. And then 30 to 40% more physical ailment damage to moving enemies. So as long as I can get enemies to move, that's another 40% more damage multi. Like, are you kidding me? And then you have a bunch of free stats. And in Last Epoch, stats give you a bunch of side effects, like additional buffs as well, right? Once again, another item. I don't know how rare this fucking thing is, but it seemed really, really good for what we were doing. It has bleed chance on hit. It has bleed duration. It has physical damage over time leached as life. And yeah, so just pretty much good there. Then we have our one primordial unique. This season's gimmick is you can have one overpowered item, right? I believe they're called primordial uniques. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the one that we're going with. The Carrion of Creation. This is going to give us armor mitigation, also applies to dot. So our little bit of armor is also going to help us survive dots better. Then it has a really high chance to apply bleed, and it has conversion for everything else into bleed chance. So if I find an easy way to stack any of those, we might do something like that just for the even higher bleed chance. And then when you kill an enemy, it has a 25 to 47% chance to explode with primordial blood, dealing physical damage to others around it. And then primordial blood gains a 37 to 100% chance to inflict bleed on hit per stack of bleed on the enemy. So essentially, this should be cascading chain explosions of blood, right? Ideally, how this works is I cast ripped blood. That enemy explodes with primordial blood. That primordial blood hits a bunch of enemies, applies a bunch of bleeds, and they pop, and then the process repeats. And if this can cascade off screen, the clear is going to be like relatively insane. If it doesn't, it's still really, really good, right? So we got that as our last item, and I believe that's all of the gear. Let's go over the idols real quick. There's only 2 in here, but these are what I'm going to look for, right? Idols with modifiers like this, like the 40% increased damage over time, or the chance to apply bleed with a physical spell skill. And then we have chance to apply bleed and physical penetration with bleed. And then this was just res, right? I needed that to finish capping out my resistances. Rounding us out to the end of this video, we're going to go over blessings and the passive tree. So we went ahead and we just grabbed a couple of the blessings that I feel are going to be useful. So the ward gain on kill and the ward decay threshold, super big. The survival of might, critical strike avoidance, dodge rating. Then we have curse of sulfur, which is going to be applying frailty to the enemies, which is going to be super good because we're not that tanky, I don't think. So this should help us survive a little bit better. Then we have increased armor, and then we have ward gained per second. And now, finally, the thing that's actually rounding us out to the end of this video, we're going to be going over the passive tree. We're starting with Acolyte, and we're grabbing 8 points in Forbidden Knowledge, 10 points in Mania Mortality, 5 points in Unnatural Preservation, 3 points in Stolen Valor, and 6 points in Veins of Power. Oh, there we go. 6 points in Veins of Power. Then we're going to Warlock. We're grabbing Spiteful Decay for dot multi and life and more damage over time to cursed enemies. Then we get Cauldron of Blood, which is giving us bleed chance, and it's giving us Bleed Overlord for 12 seconds. From what I found on Reddit, this is apparently a more damage multiplier for bleeds as well as if the enemy is moving, they take increased damage. So kind of like a baby version of the boots that I was using. And yeah. And then we have Crimson Favors. Your blood hits have a chance to inflict bleed on enemies, giving us increased physical damage, bleed chance, and when we have Bleed Overlord, it's going to cast Rip Blood every second. So previously, I was a little bit wrong when I said we should have like 3 cast when we cast Rip Blood, right? We should actually have like 5, which is making me a little bit concerned about like mana cost and stuff. Because when I was saying the 3, we have the Rip Blood, which triggers Marrow Shards twice, but this is also going to be giving us an additional trigger of Rip Blood. Wait, how many times is this going to proc? Because if we proc Rip Blood, it's going to cast the 2 Marrow Shards. If we cast Rip Blood and there's more than 25 bleed stacks near us, it's going to trigger Rip Blood, which would trigger another 2 Marrow Shards, if I'm not mistaken. And then this would cast Rip Blood again, which would be another 2 Marrow Shards. Okay, we're just going to say 3 and hope that we don't like PK ourselves with the amount, because a lot of these skills cost life. So, yeah. We may actually have to find a way to balance that out if it is going to be triggering that much, because if it's triggering that much, holy shit, I don't know how I'm going to we should be fine. But yeah, moving on. The reason why I went Acolyte into Warlock is because this is the way we're going to be doing it while we're leveling up as well. We're going to go Acolyte, and then we're going to go Warlock. And then the rest of our points are in Lich. We have not even going to try pronouncing that, but it gives us intelligence, mana regen, and mana regen to increased armor at 50%, right? So you gain increased armor equal to half of your mana regen. That's why our rings have mana regen on them. Deaden nerves for vitality, poison res, ward, physical res, necrotic res, vitality, regen, shared bleed chance, and the frostbite chance would also count as bleed chance because of the gloves. Then we have Desolation for dot multi and skeletal vanguards. If these skeletal vanguards pop up and they manage to live, they're just going to be applying even more free bleed for us. So that's really cool. We have Bed of Souls, Vitality in the region. We already went over that. 3 Plagues for the physical penetration, Ageless Aesthetic for cast speed. Then we have 5 points in Mind over Body for the intelligence, and the current health drain per second 5%. We're gonna definitely have to find a way to counteract that. If not, we are gonna take these points out, because not that the ward gain isn't going to be extremely appreciated. I don't know how I'm going to be able to support losing 5% life per second. But yeah, that is pretty much it. That's what we're looking like. That's what we're planning on. As of right now, I plan on streaming from the season 3 start to probably 24 hours. Might not, haven't fully decided, still recovering from a surgery I had not that long ago. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comments. I'll answer them if I am able, and other people will answer them if I'm not able, hopefully. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with this and future content. And until next time, take care.